What if one of the most famous voyages in history was actually built on a spectacular failure? Well, today, we're digging into a wild story of bad math, incredible luck, and an accident that literally redrew the map of the world.
Seriously? This is the absolute best way to think about Christopher Columbus's voyage back in 1492. He had a very specific goal in mind, but he ended up stumbling into a prize he didn't even know was out there.
So, what was his actual plan? Well, forget anything you've heard about him trying to prove the Earth was round. His mission was all about business. He wanted to find a super-fast, westward sea route to the spice markets in Asia. He was looking for the Indies, and instead, he ran smack into an entire hemisphere.
Okay, and this is where the story gets really juicy. His whole plan didn't fall apart because of bad geography. Not in the way you might think. No, it was a failure of mathematics, and on an absolutely epic scale.
Let's just get this out of the way right now. The whole idea of Columbus as this lone genius arguing with a bunch of flat earthers, it's a total myth. Educated folks all the way back to the ancient Greeks knew the Earth was a sphere. The real argument wasn't about the planet's shape, it was all about its size.
And on the question of size, Columbus was spectacularly wrong. He thought the Earth was way, way smaller than it actually is. How far off was he? His math was wrong by about 8,000 miles. You know, that's not just a rounding error. That's the kind of mistake that should have been a death sentence for him and his crew.
And that's really the heart of it. His entire expedition, his sales pitch to the Spanish crown, it was all built on this faulty math. He promised he could sail west and hit Asia in just a few weeks. In reality, if the Americas hadn't been sitting there in the middle of the ocean, his crew would have run out of supplies and just vanished. So, as you can imagine, that massive miscalculation led to some seriously intense human drama. I mean, just put yourself on one of those ships. You were promised a short trip, but now weeks are turning into months. And every single day, all you see is endless, empty ocean. It's starting to feel less like an adventure and more like a trap.
They left Spain in August, and by early October, the crew was at its absolute breaking point. They had sailed further into the unknown than any Europeans had before, and a deep panic was setting in. They were ready to turn back or maybe even throw Columbus overboard. The tension was just sky high.
In fact, the pressure on Columbus was so intense that he started keeping two separate logbooks. One of them tracked the real terrifying distance they had actually traveled. The other was a fake one with much shorter distances that he would show to the crew to calm them down. It was a pretty desperate gamble just to keep the whole mission from falling apart.
And then, on October 12th, it happened. They saw land. The relief must have been unbelievable. But for Columbus, this wasn't some shocking discovery. For him, it was confirmation, proof that his flawed theory was right all along. And that belief led straight to another huge mistake.
Because his bad math told him Asia should be right about there. That's exactly what he saw. He believed with every fiber of his being that he had reached the islands off the coast of Asia, the East Indies.
So you can see the chain reaction, right? He's convinced he's in the Indies, so what does he logically call the native people he meets? Indians. It's a name born from a massive geographical blunder, and it's stuck around for over 500 years.
What's really mind-boggling, though, is that Columbus never really understood what he'd actually done. He made 4 different voyages to the Americas, explored all around the Caribbean, and he died still insisting that he had simply found a new route to the Far East.
So let's get this straight. He got the map wrong, he got the distance wrong, and he got the destination wrong. But that incredible string of failures accidentally kicked off one of the single biggest transformations in all of human history. See, the true legacy of his voyage wasn't some new trade route, it was something we now call the Columbian Exchange. This was the moment that two giant isolated ecosystems, the old world of Europe, Asia, and Africa, and the new world of the Americas, were suddenly and permanently reconnected.
And the impact was world-altering. I mean, can you imagine Italian food without tomatoes? Or Ireland without potatoes? Both of those are New World crops. And going the other way, horses were brought to the Americas, which completely revolutionized life for Native American tribes. But the exchange also had a devastating side, especially the diseases from Europe that wiped out enormous parts of the indigenous population.
So when you boil it all down, Columbus failed completely at what he set out to do. He was wrong about pretty much everything. But in doing so, he accidentally slammed two halves of the planet together, setting off the chain reaction that created the modern world as we know it.
It leaves you with a pretty wild thought, doesn't it?
So many great discoveries, from penicillin to the microwave oven, all started as accidents. It just makes you wonder, what fortunate blunders might be happening right now that are going to completely reshape our future?